I'm going to say something that almost nobody says out loud. If you have no real friends right now, you might actually be ahead of most people. Not despite of it, because of it. I know exactly how that sounds. I know what you've been told, that there's something wrong with you. But here's the thing. There's one mistake almost everyone makes when you think about what it means to be alone. And once I tell you what it is, you're never going to see your situation the same way again. But before I get there, I need to explain something that most people get completely wrong. And it starts with understanding the difference between two words that everyone thinks are the same, but actually aren't. And I promise you, understanding the difference between these two words are going to change how you see the next years of your life. Loneliness is when you want connection and don't have it. Solitude is when you're alone and you're okay with it. These are not the same thing. And that's the mistake I was talking about. Because the second you decide to label your situation as loneliness, you already decided it's a problem. But what if it's not loneliness? What if it's actually solitude and you just haven't realized it yet? Now here's where it gets interesting, because psychologists have studied for years what solitude does to people. And the findings are not what you expect. People who spend regular intentional time alone report higher self-awareness, better emotional regulation, more clarity about who they are and what they want, and a stronger sense of purpose than most people who are constantly surrounded by others. Think about what that means. While most people are busy planning their calendars, managing drama, or being surrounded by people they don't really like, you've been building something that they haven't even started yet. Now I want to be honest with you before we go any further. I'm not going to romanticize loneliness. It hurt, and I'll get back to that later. But right now I want to give you the 4 specific advantages you're actively building right now, whether you realize it or not. 4 things, so stay with me. And by the way, if you want to hear the full story of how I got here, how I went from hiding in a bathroom stall to understanding all of this, the video is linked in the description. But here are the 4 things. Advantage 1, you actually know yourself. When you're always surrounded by people, you're constantly performing, constantly adjusting. You laugh when they laugh. You have opinions that are really just reflections of the group. And after years of that, you genuinely don't know what you want anymore, because you've been busy figuring out what everybody else wants. But when you're alone, you have no other option but to actually face yourself. Your actual thoughts, your actual reactions. Nobody to perform to, except you. I spent years in that space, and I learned more about myself than most people will ever do in their entire lifespan. Definitely not because I'm smarter, but because I had no other options. So let me ask you something, and I want you to actually think about it. What do you want out of life? Not what your family expects, not what you see on social media. What you actually want. Most people genuinely can't answer that. If you can, that's not nothing. That's one of the rarest things a person can have. Advantage number 2, you stop people pleasing whether you actually wanted it or not. Here's something people spend years trying to unlearn, and you got forced into it early. When you have a big friend group, you're constantly performing. Saying yes when you mean no, laughing at things that aren't funny, shrinking yourself so nobody feels uncomfortable. That's a friendship. That's people pleasing with a social calendar. And here's what nobody says directly. People pleasing is not kindness, it's self-disrespect. Every time you do something against your own values to make someone happy, you're telling yourself that their comfort is more important than your truth. When you've been alone, you stop doing things for approval. Not because you chose to, but because there was nobody to approve of you. And that forced you to build something that most people would never build. A relationship with yourself that does not depend on what others think of you. Now advantages 3 and 4. These are the 2 I think most people underestimate. And the 4th one especially, I think is the most important one of this entire video. But I'm going to save it for last. Advantage 3. When you do connect, it's real. Here's something I've noticed about people who spend a lot of time alone. When they actually have a real conversation, they're completely present. They listen, they don't interrupt, they're not performing or waiting for their turn to talk, because they don't need to. When you're not desperate for connection, when you've learned how to be okay with yourself, the connections you do make come from a completely different place. Not from need, but from choice. And I promise you, a single conversation with someone who actually sees you is worth more than 100 nights out with people you're performing for. People are always surrounded by others, often have no idea what a real connection actually feels like. because they've never had to sit still for long enough to actually find out. You have. Advantage number 4, and this is the one I said was most important. You've built resilience without realizing it. Think about what being alone actually requires. Society tells you it's wrong. Every movie, every show, every social media post tells you that a life without a big social circle is a failed life. And you've sat with all of that, day after day, without running away from it, without numbing it. You faced it. Most people will do anything to avoid being alone with their thoughts. They fill every second with noise. They surround themselves with people they don't even like, just to avoid the silence. You didn't have that option, and because of that, you've built a tolerance to discomfort that most people will spend their whole lives trying to develop. Screen record that if you need to. Because that tolerance, that ability to sit with yourself and keep going, is going to carry you further than almost anything else in your life. Now here's one thing I haven't told you yet. One condition that determines if all of that what I just said actually applies to you or not. And this is the part most people skip past. Don't. There are 2 versions of being alone, and they lead to completely different outcomes. Version 1, you're alone and you're building. You're reflecting, you're actually working on something, reading, training, crafting, thinking, using the time with intention. Version 2, you're alone and you're just consuming. Scrolling for hours, watching other people's lives, waiting for something to happen, being passive. And here's the hard truth. Version 2 gives you none of the advantages I've been talking about. None. Solitude builds you when you're actually present in it, not when you're escaping into a screen to avoid the silence. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that being alone makes you special. It doesn't. What makes a difference is a decision. And here's what I mean by that, because this is important. It's never about motivation. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes, you can't rely on it. What matters is deciding who you are and what you do. Every single day you have a choice. Are you going to use the time to build something, or are you going to let it pass? Nobody is going to make a choice for you. The only person who can do something with your alone time is you. And the people watching right now who actually do something like that, they're going to look back on this period of their lives completely differently. Not as years they had no friends, but as years they've built themselves. I spent years thinking my situation was punishment, that I was behind everyone else, that something was fundamentally wrong with me. I wasn't behind. I was building something without even knowing it. Something quieter than what most people were building. Something slower, but something a lot more real. If you're in that place right now, I'm not going to tell you that loneliness doesn't hurt. It does. But you're not losing time. You're not falling behind. You're building something that most people spend years trying to find. Use it. Drop in the comments what is one thing you've built or figured out by yourself during time alone that you couldn't have built surrounded by people. I'm genuinely reading every single one of them.